Welcome to Absolute Cardboard, where we focus on budget decks, cool accessories, and building a collection you can be proud of. And today I have a confession. I am flat broke. That's right, along with other notable Magic personalities, I invested heavily into Squadron Hawk to a coin. I know, it seemed like a scam from the get go, but how can I say no to a slogan like that? Luckily, there are a lot of good cards from the latest Magic set Spider-Man that can be added to your collection for long-term use, and they are all really inexpensive. We'll start with Urban Retreat and Oscorp Industries. They're going to be fine additions to Bant or Grixis decks, specifically for those budget-minded. The effects on these to get them into play in the alternative ways are okay, and just a note on Oscorp Industries, just because you can play it from the graveyard with Mayhem, that doesn't give you an extra land drop, so if you want to Mayhem this out, just make sure you haven't already played a land yet. Professional Wrestler sucks, but professional wrestling is cool. The way things are going, I'm almost positive we're going to get a WWE Universes Beyond sooner than later, though I would prefer an AEW set so I can run the Youngest Men Alive, the Outrunners, as my partner commanders. Green Goblin Revenant is almost really good. If it cost one less or maybe had haste instead of Death Touch, it would be great. As it is now, it seems like this is a fine way to leverage your discards in either a reanimation strategy or even something like a Kuja Spellslinger deck focusing on Tormenting Voice type effects. Secret Identity is something I can see used for just the hexproof ability. 1 mana instant to give a creature hexproof is totally fine. So this can adjust the power and toughness of your creature. It has additional benefits, making this a solid addition to your collection. Extra bonus points for artist RK Post, who made this an awesome homage to the already terrific art from Unmask. Iron Spider is a fine artifact creature-centric card. It gives me Steel Overseer vibes, but it's probably a bit better. I really like how each ability on this card kind of works towards the next. Attacking with it doesn't require it to tap, which means you can use its second ability after or while attacking. And since the last ability doesn't require tapping, you can attack with it, tap it for the second effect, and then remove counters you just placed to draw a card. Very solid. Lady Octopus probably isn't that great a card in the 99, or like other artifact strategies. It's just too easy to remove. However, as a commander, I find her incredibly intriguing. I kind of think of her almost like an Aether Vial in the command zone, and while an O2 isn't the most resilient creature, running a bunch of cheap blue cards like the previously mentioned Secret Identity can allow you to build up a lot of counters on this, through interaction and wipes and stuff like that, letting you drop big artifacts while still keeping your mana up to protect them. Spider Manifestation isn't going to be the mana dork of the year. It's not going to replace Birds of Paradise or anything like that. But what it will do is be a good 2 mana value mana dork in these Gruul colors. Sometimes getting to double dip or maybe even triple dip on the mana is really nice. I could see this having a spot in budget decks where your commander costs 5 mana so you can get that double mana right away. Also, shout out to those people who see spiders and just freak the fuck out. The art on this is terrific or horrifying, and if I was arachnophobic, I would lose my entire ass off. I love cards that goad the entire board, and this isn't exactly that, but it's that more or less. It's an immediate chaos maker. I also really like the effect that the most powerful effect on this saga happens first. So instead of having to wait it out, you get it right away, and then the other stuff added on is just a nice bonus. Now, be aware that the first chapter in this will include your creatures too, so if you want to keep them out of the combat zone, make sure to cast this in your second main phase after the combat step. Doc Ock's Tentacles seem like a good addition to any Voltron deck that has your primary creatures costing 5 or more mana. Obviously, there are better things you want to get with Godo if you have an unlimited budget, but for Voltron-style decks with commanders like Aisha Tanaka, this could be really good. Same with Cloud X Soldier, getting to that 7 power breakpoint immediately. This would also be pretty neat in Sir Gwyn, where Sir Gwyn would make the equipment cost 0. I mean, you never ever want to pay to equip this, so make sure you have a few different Voltrons at 5 to equip them automatically, or run a lot of those auto-equip cards. Now, on a side note, why do people on the good side of the good guy, bad guy battle still refer to him as doctor? Like, sure, he probably has a doctorate from an esteemed school, but he's also clinically insane and kind of a pervert. Once we found out that the Unabomber was Ted Kaczynski, we didn't all of a sudden start demanding that people call him Dr. Unabomber, even though he does have a doctorate from University of Michigan. Yet for all the crap that he put Spider-Man through, Spider-Man still refers to him as Doctor, or even colloquially calls him Doc, which just goes to show you that Spider-Man is really stupid. I have no idea who this is. For a hot minute, I thought it was just a typo that was printed, as WotC is prone to do, and this was supposed to be a Merlin card. But then why would Merlin be eating spiders? I mean, besides from the fact that they taste really good. Merlin is really nice in vampire decks as a 2 mana for 2/1 lifelinker, and that's not that bad, but being able to make him big and deal some direct damage is really nice. In decks where you may generate lots of mana through stuff like Cabal Coffers, this seems like almost a better, almost strictly better, Maga Trader to Mortals. So one difference is that Morlon becomes big by damaging the opponent, where Maga has kind of a draining effect, or you could even say Maga sucks. This is another character I just don't get. I get Spider-Man is a man with spider-like features and abilities, but this dude is all of Great Britain if they were like taken over by spiders. What is this naming convention? Shouldn't it be Spider Bruv or Spider Mate? Or if you wanted to be really proper, like the Queen, what about Spider Chap or Spider Govna? Naming conventions aside, I think this is a fine sculpting option for token generation decks. It's not going to be busted like Benny Brack since it only triggers on your end step. However, I think it is a good budget option. This is a pretty good one, especially since web slinging can reset some of the come into play effects on your creatures. Behold the Sinister Six is really good, if a bit bland. Probably not super great in single target reanimation strategies where you're targeting one creature like Hashitan or Zephyrus of the Hidden Ways, but in thinking of stuff like self-mill and dredge stuff, kind of like Get Rog Monster or even Quorum, I think this can be super powerful. The strength comes from its asynchronicity, meaning that it's just your graveyard and just your creatures coming back. Living Death style cards can backfire if your opponent also has powerful stuff already in their graveyard, where this will let you largely ignore what your opponents have. Heck, this isn't even really that bad in mid-range decks that have black as a way to get just 6 really good, really effective, really powerful creatures back from a big wipe. With great power ... is a tad expensive for traditional aura stacks like Light Paws or Galea Kindler of Hope, or Voltron stacks like Rafik of the Many, if you're not making great use of that second ability on it, the Pariah ability. But I do think that having another All That Glitters effect only increases your finisher consistency. One of the benefits of that is it gives you another route to actually power down your bracket by reducing the number of tutors and potentially game changers. I'm talking specifically about Enlightened Tutor. By simply removing Enlightened Tutor, you can remove a game changer, a tutor, and a budget buster while replacing it with another win condition. So while this is a pretty redundant card gameplay-wise, it does unlock a few things in the larger scope of what Commander is. This is another solid option for Voltron decks, but also any deck that wants their commander to attack fairly unimpeded, or that require an attack from their commander to trigger their effect. I'm thinking commanders like Girid Conclave Exile, Torvald Fakehurst Keen, or Cloud X Soldier. They all want to attack to get their effects, but they don't necessarily want the risk associated with entering the combat zone. Now, don't get me wrong, producing colorless mana is a cost. It requiring additional mana to get colored is also a cost, so don't just toss this into the deck willy-nilly. This will take up a utility land slot, so this is almost like a strictly worse version of Shizo's Death Storehouse, but this also costs about $20 less than Shizo Death Storehouse. Agent Venom is almost a strict upgrade to Midnight Reaper, and Midnight Reaper is totally fine. It will fit as a replacement or redundancy in almost any deck that Midnight Reaper was in. I'm particularly thinking about Gix Yawgmoth Praetor, where you will A, be fine with your creatures dying, since they have most likely replaced themselves anyways, and B, has Menace, meaning it can be another threat to draw more cards when attacking. The Menace is fine in general, but the Flash is really handy since you can cast Agent Venom in response to removal and get the surprise draw. Also, Agent Venom's alter ego is Flash Thompson, so I'm pretty sure the only reason this has Flash is because it's something that recent Magic designers think is super clever, and it's not. Spider-Woman is going to be a great stacks piece for a long time, either in the 99 or as the commander. And look, I'm not the biggest fan of stacks, but I don't mind stacks like this, where it doesn't prohibit people from playing, it just slows them down, which, from my perspective, is the optimal way to play stacks. Not optimal as in winning optimal, but winning is for losers. I think Artifacts and Creatures is a stronger Kismet set than, say, Thalia, Heretic, Cathars, especially with the modern proliferation of treasures, foods, clues, and junks, the best artifact token, because you can make custom tokens of dudes grabbing their crotch. Sandman is a really, really good card for any deck that does the following: mill itself, dredge itself, or use mulch effects to get card advantage, which means this is going to sit generally in Golgari or Sultai decks. This will slot right into Muldrotha, Taval, Sidisi, but don't limit yourself to just that. Think of some like landfall strategy, like Tunuk Memorial Ensign. Is he the most broken commander? No, but we can't all be mythic rares from the latest universes beyond set. But what Chinook is a solid and fair landfall engine. It, in and of itself, won't wipe the table, but it will let you get through your deck and chip damage on the table, softening them up for your actual win conditions. So what does this actually have to do with Sandman? Well, Sandman is something I like to think of as a win tangent. What this means is that this is a win condition that works well in alignment with the main strategy, but requires different answers than what your opponents expect or are expecting to use. Like landfall finishers are generally something big, like a big X spell, hurricane type thing, or many tokens from like a Scoot Swarm. Sandman allows you to recur one big threat. What's good against maybe the other strategies is not always necessarily good against the Sandman, and vice versa. And that gives Sandman a lot of power. And for the second collection building video in a row, my highest recommendation is an inoffensive utility sculpting card. Heroes Hangout is the Red Serum Vision, or Red Opt, or Red Preordain, and that's just the Date Night mode. The Patrol Night mode is very but it is there, and that's extra utility, and that's always handy. Now, as with all exile in play until next turn cards, you don't want to just jam it out there. If your deck has a really high mana value average, throwing this out on like turn 1 is fairly to just exile the top 2 cards of your deck unless you hit a land, but sometimes trying to dig for a land with just 1 mana is something red really needs or wants. This is going to be useful for a very long time, and it costs almost nothing. And the biggest thing to note about this card is that this is the Date Night mode, which means after playing it enough times, Gwen and Miles are probably gonna bang. Hey everyone, Alan here with Bernie. Just wanted to jump in and let you know that for about half the price of a Play Booster Pack, you can become a member of this channel, either on Patreon or here on YouTube. That's right, for just $3 a month, you can support the most handsomest man in Magic, and get early access to videos as well as some member-only videos, like why you need to prepare for the Infinity Stone. Oh, and if you're already a Patreon member, that price should automatically drop down to $3, so don't worry about it. Now, if any of my reviews or budget decks have saved you some cash, consider becoming a member, so I can keep saving people money while they enjoy the game of Magic, and keep Bernie here rolling in treats. What a good girl.